when people play back records, they can tune the system to their tastes, both with the loudspeakers and with the cartridge, because there are not that many cartridges that are really linear, but there are better ones and worse ones. But you can use it and set it up to your sonic preference, which is all that really matters.
Yeah, because I like the loudest switch. You know, just turn on the loudest switch.
All the time.
Yeah, all the time.
Who cares what Fletcher wants? Yes.
If I'm to understand, it sounds like you're saying it's much better to do all your recording, your mixing, and your mastering in analog, but
not exactly. Not exactly.
Okay.
It's not so bad to use digital as a storage medium. It put all your tracks on there.
Well, that's my question.
Put all your tracks on there at a high resolution would be good, but it's not so bad to do that. I've heard a lot of good recordings that way. And then they're mixed on an analog board, though.
Right. Well, now let's say you had cost no issue. Is it possible? Let's say you do it in analog, and then at that point you put it on digital.
Yeah, no, and some people do that.
And then play it back digital, through a DAC.
Okay.
Can you get as good quality as if you were staying in the analog domain with a reel-to-reel?
Well, it's different. They all, like I said, they do have their own personality. But if you have a good multi-track analog machine, you can make an incredible recording. But that varies a lot too. Depending on the tape, depending on the speed, depending on the analog has a lot of variables. I mean, my rule of thumb is that they're both kind of delicate. You can make really bad analog recordings too. A lot of people have this kind of like romantic thing with analog. I mean, analog can be incredible and it can be the most natural way to do it. But you have to, at every stage, you have to really know what you're doing and be very sure that it's not going downhill, because this stuff can go downhill and you might not notice it, and all of a sudden you get out over here, you've done all this work, and then you say, well, gee, I'm not feeling it the way I used to. And then you go back to before you started doing all this stuff to it, and it's like, whoa.
I guess my question is, because I came to the conclusion this spring that I don't know how to get a good sounding playback from a digital source. I haven't heard it yet.
I don't either.
Is it possible?
Are you talking about downloads or
whatever? I mean, let's say, just theoretically speaking, is it possible to get something that will sound good?
I think it could sound okay.
Well, no, it could sound okay.
I don't find myself able to sit and listen for long periods of time.
Well, that's what I mean.
Or to be drawn in. I usually want to read something. I clean my room. It's fine. I can't turn the lights out. I just can't do it.
That's my question. Is it possible, or are we just stuck to say, where digital doesn't work until we get some new technology that's going to make it?
I don't know. I know young people I talk to say, I grew up with CDs, and when I heard a record, I stop what I was doing and I pay attention to it, and I'm drawn into it. That's what's doing this. This is not about hipsterism or it's a fad or Kevin Spacey saying you're going to cut your beard off. You see that commercial with Kevin Spacey? It's a long story. I don't get into it.
Well, I just wanted to add, I have heard some 2496 downloads recently that are absolutely appalling.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that people are accepting the quality of these. They
so
can
much
be a whole lot
has
better than that, because in some cases I've mastered and I've heard the original.
So much has to do with the decoding, I suppose.
Well, you don't know what
This is in the encoding, obviously.
And you don't know what it's gone through. That's another thing. People just automatically assume that if it's 9624, it's better. It isn't necessarily better. None of it is necessarily better. It is what it is, and you can have a bad 192. Right. Who knows what it goes through when we make the file? It could go to this guy over here that puts PQ codes in or whatever, and it could go over to this guy over here, and all of this stuff is destructive. All these copies and whatever they're doing is going to change the sound.
All your mastering chains have changed over the years and improved with better electronics.
Oh, we have that, yeah.
Because I know, Chris, you cut Neil Young's first box set, and you cut Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere. Okay, so if you have an original of that, which probably goes for a lot of money, if you compare it to the one he cut as a reissue, the reissue sounds so much better to me than the original. It's got so much more drive. It's got cleaner, quieter backgrounds. I mean, people don't realize that your systems in your rooms are reverse stereos in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. It's the same, and your systems keep getting better and better. So what you're cutting gets better and better.
Well, I think everything's better now. I think the processing is better. The pressings there's more attention to quality. and it came from audiophile, because that's what
That's
started
right.
this whole rebirth of vinyl.
The original pressing has the advantage of fresh tape. I mean, and that matters. That's something really
Well,
to
it
be said
does
for.
matter.
I'm still working with tapes from 1956 that sound pretty freaking
Those are
amazing.
Scotch
you know?
111, right?
Well, yeah,
That's-
but you know, it's all this stuff about tapes getting worn out. I said, yeah, if they got mastered, 125 lacquers cut from it or something, maybe. But I've heard some really old tapes that just still sound amazing, and I've been able to compare them to the original pressings, and then I've heard my pressing of it. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Now you cut the famous Blue Raincoat that just came out, right? You did that one. So that was a digital recording mixed to analog and cut, and that. Yeah.
Well, I don't think originally it was it the multi-track?
Yes,
edition?
yes, it was.
Oh, okay.
It was.
I didn't know. I only worked with a 1/2" 30.
Yeah, and then it was mixed, but that
Oh.
sounds great. That sounds fantastic because everything you said about what happens if you slow it down and move it on to analog,
Yeah.
you can take care of the issues. But that's a great sounding record. That impacts
Yeah,
you.
well,
sounds good.
yeah. Well, and all those things count, though. The engineer, the mixer. At every stage, you can make a big difference.
There's a good point about your question. It was digitally recorded, but it was mixed analog.
Right.
Yeah.
So it got there. It got there.
Something happened to it.
Okay, in good.
It was like it.
Got there in good shape.
It probably went through an analog board too, right? I mean, from digital. So the digital was like Bernie was talking about earlier, was just the storage medium.
And a very good engineer.
And there's
Yes.
a lot of there's a lot of analog boards that aren't that great, and there's a lot of them that are fantastic. So it can. Just because it's analog or just because it's this or that, it doesn't mean it's going to be good. You have to have good engineers. You have to have people with ears.
So when a record comes out really great, it's kind of lucky in a lot of ways. Everything
In
has to
some ways.
happen. It's amazing. It's a miracle.
In some ways, those exceptional ones are exceptions.
I have some questions, and you should wrap it up.
Okay, we're going to wrap it
Because
up.
it wasn't any good, or because we want people to go back.
It was too good.
Okay.
And there's still one more thing to do. So one, I want to know how many Grammy nominations are across the board for everyone. And then two, I want to know how is it that you came to master Thriller, Chronic, and Straight Outta Compton?
Yeah, well, I didn't do Straight Outta Compton. Brian Gardner did that.
Oh, okay.
But I did, yeah, I did.
Your studio.
I did all those, Asia and so forth. Well, I didn't solicit it, but I've always prided myself in trying to have the best system, and I think that speaks for itself too. Because this is, it is man and machine. It's not only me.
Right.
I have a very big interest in music, and I'm very concerned about setting up a piece of music that communicates emotionally, and that's what it's all about. I have to use myself for that, and hopefully I'm open enough and I'm not prejudiced to the type of music I'm working on, so that I can open myself up to it and know that when I'm turning these knobs that I'm doing something beneficial for it, that it's communicating, connecting with me better emotionally, that I'm getting more out of this music. So I think a lot of people feel that I have that interest in their music, in that specific music, and I do. That's just my attitude towards it. I'm very concerned about the work I do, and I've developed this reputation, and it's hard to say why it's so diverse.
How many Grammys?
Well, Grammys, mastering engineers haven't been able to get Grammys for a long time. I mean, only for about 10 years,
Something like that.
something like that. Because
I have no idea.
Up to about 10 years ago, there was no Grammy award for a mastering engineer, and then people lobbied for it. So we can only get on maybe 4 categories. We ride along with the album of the year, the record of the year, the best engineered album, and the 5.1 and something else. I think the package. Maybe it's 5 different possibilities, but that's all. It's only been in the last 10 years.
Kevin, you have any of those statues or any nominations of those statues?
I've got 2 Grammys, and I've done a couple dozen gold and platinum albums, but Grammy nominations, I don't know. I have no idea.
Chris?
Nominations 3 or 4, I forget. Didn't quite get there. 2 for album of the year. Was right there waiting and didn't get picked.
You got anything going in that category?
I'm still working on it.
Okay, cool. I have 2 Academy Award nominated soundtrack things that I was involved with. I didn't get the nomination, but the movie Tron was nominated for 2 Academy Awards for Best Sound, and I supervised that. And after that, I got no work in Hollywood, so I left.